All right, we'll do one more caller. We'll do two more. Here's 626. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Aaron from California.
Aaron from California. What's on your mind?
Oh, I just want to say that I'm a libertarian, and I know your podcast.
How does this happen all the time?
Huh?
Sorry, no. That was just ignore the peanut gallery. Go ahead. Your name is Aaron?
Okay.
You're from California?
Yeah.
You're a libertarian?
Yeah. Okay. And I noticed that your podcast is anti-libertarian. And I
don't like to think of myself as anti anything. But
okay.
But I mean, if it's easier for a shorthand, okay.
Well, actually, my question though, what are you?
What am I? What do you mean? Old?
Like, are you progressive? Are you?
I am of the left. I don't liberal. Really. To be honest with you, I've never been somebody who's been very too concerned with picking a name for my set of beliefs.
Okay. I know what you mean. I kind of feel the same way. I don't even like calling myself a libertarian because I feel like each individual, has a unique perspective.
And of course, telling yourself you're a libertarian is not a very nice thing to do to yourself.
I'm actually okay with it. It's better than being progressive.
Okay. So Aaron, what does a libertarian mean then to you?
Well, I guess for me, it's kind of like limited government, pretty much the individual.
This concept of limited
individual
government,
sovereignty.
What does that mean? Limited government. I'm not sure I understand. Do you mean in terms of dollars, or do you mean in terms of like functioning? What do you? What?
Okay. So pretty much, I guess I'm more of like the John Lockean kind of limited government. Pretty much, government's only role is to do nothing but to protect your rights to life, liberty, and property. Kind of like a minarchist. I mean, I guess one of the roles of government that I wouldn't be like advocating, but I'd be complicit would be taxes and roads and military and police. But I think that's as far as I can go.
Taxes, roads, military, police, fire department?
Not really.
Not fire department? Okay. And,
no.
If you want to put out a fire, you pay for it yourself, my friend.
Okay.
And so the police is just to protect mainly property? That's why the government needs to step in there?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a medium to honoring and respecting property rights.
Okay. And
to an extent, though.
Yeah, to an extent. To what extent? I mean, so at what point can I go and take your stuff?
Well, I guess the extent of property, like I think an example would be in California. There's this huge plot of land that's pretty much owned by one guy. And obviously that I don't necessarily agree with it because it's just empty land. And his purpose is just to, go for the highest bidder. And that's something I don't agree with. It's something that I prefer there be a little bit more reform to it, like a limit to that stake.
So you would have government limit how much property you could own?
Depending on the use of it, not just the plot of land. That's pretty much.
Okay, so you would have government, but government would have the ability to limit how much property you could own.
Depending on the use of it.
I understand that you have a certain criteria that you would develop as to when government could step in and stop your accumulation of that property. But you're okay. Yeah. You're okay with that, but not necessarily a fire department. You think that should be privatized. So if you don't have money, you burn.
Not necessarily.
Well, I mean, not necessarily, but that's sort of, if I said to you, like, hey, I'm going to light your house on fire. The fire department might not necessarily show up. Would you be?
Well, no, I mean, if you intentionally try to burn someone's property, of course.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, let me do this scenario.
You're talking about some kind of natural disaster, I'm assuming, right?
No. Let's say this. Do you believe in rental properties?
Sure.
Okay. So you're renting a property from me.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't believe in government having any type of like restrictions on like, I mean, do you believe in codes, like building codes?
No, not really.
Okay,
I think
fair enough. Now, are you an electrician?
Somewhat. Okay. Not really. I do electronics, but no, I've not.
Okay,
I
electronics.
haven't fitted a house.
All right.
Okay.
So I've got the house there, and guess what I did? Now, you don't know this because you don't have one of those machines that you don't have one of those laparoscopic video cameras that can go into the walls. But you know what I did? Save some cash. I wired it pretty cheaply in your house. I didn't. My fuse box doesn't measure up to your load and this and that. And but you know why I did that? Because I got a decent amount of insurance, and I'm not going to spend the money on you because you're a renter. And this thing starts to burn. And of course, I haven't paid for a fire department because I got fire insurance, man. I don't care. And you burn and die. You're okay with everything that just took place in that scenario, correct?
No, I mean, I think that's kind of horrible that someone was negligent in constructing a home, and which
negligent. What do you mean negligent? What is the definition of negligence in your world? Who sets up that definition of negligence? I did what was in my most economic interests. You did what was in yours. Why do you think you're living there?
Okay. Then maybe to counteract that problem is the solution is to know what you're living in. I mean, if that's becoming a problem, then I think the knowledge of knowing.
If you don't have your electrician's degree, that's not my problem.
You don't need you don't need electrician's degree. You can actually get advice from other people from their guidelines that would know. I mean, it's called education, sir.
Oh, okay. All right. And so you're going to be good at how are you on HVAC? Because I also cut some corners. Yeah, I cut some corners on the whole furnace thing, and there may be some carbon monoxide in your apartment. But now it's you can't smell it. But there's no governments that's going to tell me I can't put carbon monoxide in there if it's going to cost me money.
Well, you can. I mean, you're a consumer. You can tell them, "Oh, make sure there's no carbon monoxide. There's nothing like that.
Okay.
It's safe and it's
there's
not going to kill me."
I don't. You know what? To be honest with you, I don't know. Do you want to move in or not?
You don't know? Well, then find out.
Well, I don't want
to. That's your
concern. Do you want to move in or not to my house? You want to move into my apartment?
I mean. Sure. I mean, I'll be like, nah, I'm good. I think I want to know more
Go
about
across the
property.
street to my friend Bill's place. Because guess what? He's going to tell you the same thing.
You never know. I might know more. Like maybe that person will actually know. Maybe it's not Bill. Maybe it's Steve will tell me.
Yes.
And then I'll
maybe
I mean, it's the same thing with cars. It's like that.
Actually, no, it's not the same thing with cars because where do you live? California? You got a lemon law there, right? It's illegal for someone to sell you a car that has like the odometer's been turned back or there's problems. In fact, if you buy a used car, you can return it within a certain period of time because of that lemon law. But in your world, government doesn't have the ability to do that because that expands government, right? Because there have to be some agency to do this.
You're making a lot of assumptions. I'm not saying like if I get a lemon, like I'm not gonna like do something about it. Like tough luck, buyers beware. Like I said, I mean, I do believe in government when it comes to contracts, property rights, and I like the list. I do believe in contracts. So if I have a contract and I tell that person, "Oh, are you sure the odometer hasn't been spun? You haven't done that. You didn't do any of that. All right, let's sign a contract. Make sure everything is perfect."
I got news for you. I got news for you.
Yeah. What is it?
And this is why we have lemon laws, because you know what happens in the world that you're talking about. All the car dealers say, like, can we just all agree here? We're not going to give contracts. We're not going to give you an assurance on the car. No.
Okay, then you're a consumer. Don't buy it.
Right. And guess where you buy your
carless.
car? Nowhere. Because why do you think?
That's your imagination.
No, that's not my imagination. Why do you think there is a lemon law? Why do you think a lemon law existed? Because there was no reason for one?
Of course.
Or do you think that
I don't believe
do you think that lemon laws preceded the actual manufacturing of cars?
You know what you should do, Mr. Seder? You should if that's a huge concern, let's just say there is no lemon law. If you're really concerned about it, then make an organization to ensure that vehicles are good. They actually have organizations for electronics.
Hold on, wait a
ISO.
second. I'm still in my course learning about electricity so that I don't burn up in my house.
I mean,
there's no code.
But you seem really concerned about it, so maybe you should.
Maybe I should.
I mean, that's why he's enrolled in electricians and HVAC lessons.
And I don't mean to be.
I would imagine that politician who introduced the lemon law was like, nobody needs this, but I'm going to pass it anyways because I am why did the government do this? Why did they pass the lemon law? In your mind, what is the theory behind why?
I'm pretty sure there's a reason because there are active.
Wait,
I get it.
The phone doesn't work now. How perfect is that? Libertarians always have a problem with their phones because they're using an off-grid phone system, one that doesn't involve public easements for phone lines. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Can we ask the caller, what do you think about voting? Do people vote in your system, and what can voting and legislation do, and what is it stopped from doing by your minarchist constitution?
I mean, I guess, that's one thing though. We live in a democracy. I wouldn't try to, override it with my libertarian ideas.
For instance, if people vote for Medicare for all, for instance, that's just democracy. So you support full democratic rights for you, one person, one vote?
It doesn't really matter to me, either electoral or popular. It really doesn't matter to me.
I would just suggest to you that the only way libertarian ideas win is by disenfranchising people. But as long as
of course.
I'm sorry?
Of course. You'd have to do it with only people who own property could vote, or even property rights itself. How would you establish property rights in your system where the government only deals with roads and police department?
Well, roads, I'm just complicit. I don't necessarily believe in roads, but I don't want to argue on that point.
Well, I'm not asking you to argue about roads. I'm just saying, how do you delineate property in your vision?
Well, it is a little complicated. I do believe that if you're using the land in a purpose, which in
your
some
labor,
way that's kind of
what if
labor-based, kind of like if you're using it with the means of producing something of value, I'd say all right, let's just say I put a stake a mile over there and mile over here, and someone asks me, what do you want to do with it? I want to sell it to someone, and I'm going to get the city council to, give me that permit. I would be no, that's dumb. But if that person's going staking a mile away, and he's producing some company with parking space, with means of producing something of value to society, then that makes sense.
And who adjudicates that?
I guess the community. I do believe in some central authority.
I'm trying to figure out. You're the one who's just said that the government should only deal with creating roads, the police, not even the fire department in your mind.
Only complicit on that. I'm actually kind of close to capital anarchy.
Only complicit?
Yeah, I'm not going to go against it. I'm not going to be for it. So it's for instance, the responsibility of roads is not towards the state. I'm not going to cry over it. I'm going to still live my life.
No, I understand. Well, you're living your life right now. So I think you can handle it. I'm not.
I'm not going to go on a political rampage on it.
I know. I understand. I'm just trying to. All I'm doing here is I'm not going to exclude you from the island here. I don't have the ability to do that. I'm just trying to figure out what is your vision of a world, because frankly, none of what you're talking about hopefully is going to come about, and everything that could happen on the way to there would, I think, be detrimental to people in society.
Okay, but and I think the same about you.
Right? No, I understand, but I'm asking, what is your? I'm just trying to get a sense of what society would look like if you. Obviously not in charge, because you don't want to have that monopolization of force, right? But if it was just to evolve in this way in some fashion, how would you delineate property? Would you even have courts?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. There should be some kind of authority to decide it. And I think preferably would be an authority within the community, as opposed to somewhere in Washington or in Sacramento. Like I live in a city called Glendora.
Right.
And I would assume, well, obviously, you know how it works.
So could you only buy property in Glendora?
I'm sorry?
Well, I'm just curious, like in terms of jurisdictions, like how would this work out? So you don't want any type of,
I guess, like
why would
the foundation? Okay. All right. Well, I guess the foundation of a property would be not based on necessarily in the beginning of, you know, the city permitting or some kind of central authority permitting someone using land, but in a way to where, if someone, let's just say there's a vacant spot of land and somebody wants to use it and they use it in a way that's valuable, then I think a central authority within like its own community should respect that.
Okay. So, Aaron, you set up a piece of property, you start to farm it a little bit. Okay. It's a 1 acre plot of land and you farm it and you're growing some lettuce.
Okay.
And I come over and, or let's say you're just planning to, you haven't actually put the seeds in the ground, but you've started to till the ground a little bit. And I come over and go, oh, wait a second. I've got an oil rig. I'm putting it right there. And I start digging it. Okay. Whose property is this? Because I'm getting more value. I'm getting more value out of it.
Well, no. Well, then there's also precedent because the person who's farming and tilling the land has precedent over the person who wants to dig oil.
How do you establish that?
Tell them, no, you can't use it because this guy's using it for farmland.
Who's them? Who is telling you this? The city?
What? Some central authority, yeah.
Some central authority?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you determine how central it is? Is it going to be somebody, are you just doing it by block? Are you doing it by town or city?
I keep on telling you based on how they use the land.
Who uses it?
Keep on telling you. Huh? Anybody.
Here it is.
You just
I have an oil company. I have an oil company.
Yeah.
You find a piece of land that's vacant, okay? You go and you start to dig around in there. You're about to plant seeds. I come over and you have my machine and I start to dig. Okay. You and I have a disagreement.
Okay.
What happens next?
Like I said, the person you mentioned who's still in the farm would take precedence over. So
you get precedence?
It would be in favor. Huh?
You get precedence.
The person, I get. If I were to be the farmer who was there first, then yes, I would respect that.
I was there first. I say I was there first. Prove it.
Okay. I'm pretty sure there would be proof for it. You wouldn't establish a property rights without some kind of written assessment.
Okay. Who wrote it?
About.
Who wrote it?
The central authority that whatever it can be from the community that's been established or from a city council. Okay, but what if the community is a state? Like how many people are allowed to be a community in your situation? Whatever is, I guess, in cooperation. So, for instance, like if there's like a community of like 1,000 people, and then there's some kind of an agreement. What defines a community in your mind? A cooperation of people, a good amount of people. It can be 1,000. It could be 10,000. But I'm just saying, you're saying that Sacramento is wrong. So you don't believe in the concept of states. You don't believe in the concepts of a country in terms of, because you had a problem with Washington. I mean, I presume that's what you meant by that. So I'm just curious. I'm just trying to say, like, how do we... No. Well, I mean, yeah, that's kind of like, that's honestly, that's what I pretty much advocate. I do think that the country, I mean, even our founding fathers had agreed that more power should go to the states more than the central government, although that was like an argument. You just said not even to Sacramento. Hamilton. So you don't want states either. But it's a similar idea, just in more, I guess, more extreme in my perspective. So it's not just states' rights, but I do believe in more community rights. And the community, what defined is based on what can be collaborated and organized within the area. Like, for instance, it can be even a community of residents, like, I live in a residential area of like 20 homes, and that could be a community, and that could be of its own, and they can elect its own central authority.
Okay, so I'm not from your community of 20 homes. I come in.
Okay.
I've got an oil rig, and I got a bunch of guys.
Okay.
What are you going to do about it?
I mean, I guess. Well, what are you going to do about it? I'm actually kind of curious. What is that? Are you going to like shoot them?
Are my guys going to shoot you? No, they're just going to pick you up, place you over there. I just don't want you here. Okay, bye.
How are they going to do that?
They're going to pick you up, and they're going to walk you over there.
How are they going to pick me up? I weigh a lot.
They're going to roll you off the property.
I don't know. I don't think they can. What? Just me individually, or the rest of the community?
No, you.
What about just me? They're going to pick me. Why would they just pick me up?
There's only 20 homes. All right, I got 50 guys. They got guns.
Okay.
They got guns.
Okay.
They got guns. What are you going to do about it?
Okay. I guess it would be a battle.
We're from the other community.
Yeah. Okay.
We want
so
this.
It would be gang on gang. It would just be, all right.
Feudalism almost, right?
No. I mean, like I said, I do believe in a military.
Woo-hoo.
I do believe, I mean, like, I'm not saying the U.S. won't exist. I'm not saying like, I just believe when it comes to things, responsibilities such as property rights, it should go to the individual. And if it ever exacerbated to the point where people are shooting each other, then sure, bring in the National Guard and settle it that way.
So but you don't think that they have a mechanism in which to determine whose property it is, that there's no laws, that there's no government that has done this? Like, I just don't get like how your system is supposed to operate.
Can I jump in here for a minute? Yeah. It's always a little bit frustrating for me to listen to libertarians because sometimes they sound like they're close to understanding things and other times not so much. And by understanding things, of course, I mean agreeing with me because I am right. What you're talking about here.
Good argument.
With thank you. I know. What you're talking about here with somebody having rights to the land and then someone else comes in and takes it. That is literally how private property came about in the first place. You want to go back to
you don't believe in private property. You don't believe in private property.
No, of course not. But you want to go back to the enclosure.
I can go into your home. I can go into your home.
Why do you believe in private property? Everything. Where do you think that this right comes from? Can I ask you? Does it come from God?
On the community agreement? Oh, no, it doesn't have to be from God. I mean, if you believe it's from God. But it's just based on what was an agreement. And sure, you can have a larger army and tell you, fuck off. That can happen. Obviously, it's not right, but that's the thing. Do we want to live in a society like that? No.
So you're not talking about the abstract concept of the right, which is a liberal concept. It's an ideal, right? Something that exists, this abstract right that exists regardless of whatever is going on in the world. No, you're saying that the right exists because people take it for themselves. It's not a moral justification.
What it is.
He's saying you don't believe. Hold on for a second. You don't believe that property.
It's like right of conquest.
You don't believe that property is a natural right. It should be determined by rights should be given by a community. That's what you're suggesting.
I mean, sure. I mean, there's no foundation for like some kind of like spiritual or natural authority.
Most libertarians believe that there is a natural pre-existing right to property. Now, the fact that you don't, great. It's just why this arbitrary decision that a community, I don't know if there's a maximum number of people that you have when you define.
You're the one being meticulous about those numbers. I don't know why. It's just a general consensus that the community should, however they.
Well, then what's wrong with a country having a general consensus?
What's wrong with a smaller country having a general consensus?
I got no problem with a smaller country. So you're talking, how many countries do you anticipate being in the landmass that we now know as the United States?
I'm sorry?
How many different countries do you anticipate there being in the landmass of the United States if we were to follow your prescription?
I mean, I would assume it would just be one country, but the autonomy level would be different. So,
okay,
for instance,
give me a
like
sense
right now,
of what the autonomy level.
And actually, so like for instance, right now, I mean, it's pretty much we have a centralized government, but we also have 50 states, and in states they usually deal with murder. They usually deal with things within their own state, as opposed to the federal government. They deal with
crimes.
Well, let's just say
they're state crimes. They're federal crimes, correct? Right? Federal
crimes, counterfeiting, all that. That's their responsibility. I guess what I would do when it comes to instead of like Sacramento dealing with, I mean, we even have that here right now, like to where Sacramento, they don't create police forces. I mean, each city, each community, in a way, they create their own.
Correct.
And the state just fund them. That's pretty much it. It's pretty much the same concept. But I guess what I would prefer would be the community would have more say and more strength. For instance, I remember one time I had golf balls I used to live near a golf course, and golf balls sometimes would lop over the fence. And one time, actually 3 times, it hit my window 3 times, and it broke them 3 times. I went up to them. I told them, "You got to fix this." They didn't. They didn't fix it at all. They wouldn't because they didn't want to be responsible. So I called the police. They couldn't do anything because it's not a crime. I actually ended up winning. I went to talking to the city manager and the mayor of my community, and they said they couldn't.
No, not
do
of your community.
It.
Your community doesn't have a city manager and a mayor. Your city does.
A community can be a city. I mean, the way you're thinking,
but there is no a city manager is a position that is a function of a charter. So that, I mean, you want to call it a community, you can call them communities, but I'm just trying to get a notion of like how structured these things are in your world, but continue. All
right. So pretty much I spoke to the mayor and the city and I told them my grievances, and they said they couldn't do anything about it. I would have to talk to a state representative or a state senator on this issue. I mean, I don't have that much time. I don't want to keep on going up the echelon just because someone broke my window. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like that, I think there should be more, I guess, authority on this matter in the city level than on the state level. I guess that's an example of why.
Did you find anybody on a state level who could handle the golf balls breaking your windows?
No. I mean, yeah, I did, but I don't feel like I have to. I actually spoke to a representative of the state senator about the issue, and he took my, he heard me out, and the mayor encouraged me to do petitions on the matter, and that was pretty much it. Like,
we need to back up a few hundred years here. All right.
Wait a second.
This guy.
I'm still not clear. Wait a second. I want to just stay in this moment for a second.
Forever.
So the issue is that this golf course was knocking balls into your house, breaking windows.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? Why didn't you just take them to civil court?
Oh, actually, that's pretty much what happened. That's pretty much what happened. I ended up taking the small claims court, and I won my money. But the point was that, in a situation like that, when I talked to the city, they seem to have no power. I mean, I didn't bring it because
aren't you the one who said that you want these entities to have less power? This does not jibe with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I got news for you. There's nobody on the federal level.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
There's nobody on the federal level
you aren't.
who could have dealt with this. We have a civil set of laws. Incidentally, that small claims court.
Yeah.
Who funds that court? Where are the laws from that? Where are tort laws come from?
Sure. Okay.
Where? Tell everybody. Tell everybody.
Authority.
Sacramento. Sacramento.
State.
Sacramento. So you got your resolution from the existence of the state. And
I mean, it came from Sacramento, but why can't it be in Azusa or Glendora?
Because do you want to pay taxes for people to be developing these different sets of laws in each town? Is that what you want? You want to pay more taxes so that you can hire people to develop the exact same laws in each little county, constable, town, village, that type of thing?
The local courts would be owned by the people who own the golf course.
Okay. So you're thinking that if each city had their, I guess, judicial court, their sovereignty,
their laws, their own laws, they'd have to write all their own laws. They'd have to come up and debate and write all their own laws, and they'd be influenced. That golf course is probably one of the biggest taxpayers in the town. Hey, Jerry, I understand you're writing a law about golf balls hitting the windows. I have a suggestion for that. As the biggest taxpayer in our community, I think that should be perfectly legal for golf balls to hit windows. In fact, I think if somebody's golf ball, if somebody's window gets in the way of my golf ball, I think probably they should pay me. What do you say about that, Jerry? Well, I got to tell you, Bob, I think that's a good idea.
Well,
I mean, I'm in charge of writing the laws in this town.
I guess, but then they would have to deal with the community that they harmed. And
bud.
No, definitely not me. I got a good amount of signatures that actually agreed with my cause.
Okay.
I mean, I had a lot of support. So it's not just me, bud.
Vote them out. They'll write new laws.
That's pretty much.
You know what your taxes would be like?
Sure. I'm not saying, I don't know, maybe cheaper than federal taxes.
No. They have to do everything the federal and the state government's doing.
Like going to Iraq and Afghanistan.
No, you're the one who said you had no problem with the military. Don't talk to me about that.
Yeah.
You're the one.
No, I don't. But that doesn't mean I want them in Afghanistan.
No,
or in Iraq.
I understand, but you're changing the topic. The point is you need a whole new set of laws and a lot fewer people who are paying for the same product.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but I actually have a question for you.
Yeah. Okay. And then
what's the living wage?
What's a living wage?
Yes. What is a living wage?
How would you calculate it? I think it's sort of arbitrary, frankly, but I think the way I would calculate it is that you need to be able to pay for 3 square meals a day. You need to be able to pay the median cost of housing. You need to be able to ensure that you can clothe, if you have children, yourselves or your children. That's okay. And that's how
Well, what's housing though? What's the median housing? Is it like 5 rooms, 10 rooms, 1 room, 3 rooms?
Well,
I get a large screen TV?
Well, I think you could say, a bedroom for, you could say 100 square feet per person.
100 square feet per person. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you could say 120. You could say 150. I mean,
150. Okay. Okay. So food and shelter, 3 square meals a day, and 150 feet square feet per person. Okay. And that's it. Nothing else. Not a dog or green lawn or a car. What about a car?
I think that if you could argue that there has to be an opportunity for transportation if you want people to be able to, get to work and whatnot, and healthcare.
So the living wage, that would require you to have some type of transportation, like a Toyota Corolla, or like a Mercedes Benz.
No, a Corolla is fine.
Or we could fund a public transit system.
Or I mean, I think you could come up with some type of formula where it's like if you're if you're in a community that has a certain capacity for public transport relative, on a per capita basis, you could certainly work that out. I mean, people do. We have figures out there.
I can do that all on $15 an hour.
I can't hear you.
And I can do that all on $15 an hour.
Well, I think in some areas it should be higher.
Okay, so in LA, in the inner city of LA, how much should minimum wage be?
I don't know, but I'm sure someone has done the calculation.
So you talk about a living wage, and you're criticizing me because you think that my ideas are half baked, but you always
hold on for 1 second. Let me use Google. All right, living wage in
oh my God,
in Los Angeles.
You're just figuring this out right now. That's rich.
What's your point?
Do you expect him to know every living wage based on cities in America?
Actually, no,
Not all the time.
With 0 children, it is considered $14.83. This is from MIT. That's a
14
university.
And the inner city.
It says living wage calculation for Los Angeles County, California, Los Angeles County. Now, it may be higher for the actual city, but it's $14.83 an hour. This is according to MIT. They have a living wage calculator. The living wage is the hourly rate that an individual in a household must earn to support his or herself and their family. The assumption is the sole provider is working full-time, 2,080 hours per year. Tool provides information. The state minimum wage is the same for all individuals. For further reference, the technical documentation is here. I mean, there are social scientists who have calculated. If you want to argue with me as to like, hey, I don't think you need 1,800 calories a day. I think you need 1,600 calories a day. I mean, I suppose you could have that argument. But I'm not trying to argue. I'm not trying to sprawl the argument further. I just want to focus on your establishing what a living wage means. Having 3 square meals a day and 150 square feet per person. I mean,
what's your point,
said it was arbitrary, but I'm just, there are people who work.
And you think $14.92 in California is good enough for that?
Los Angeles.
And I live in California.
Los Angeles County.
And it's kind of funny because didn't you get the reward for being a journalist?
No.
Are you an actual journalist?
What's your point? Are you for the minimum wage or against the minimum wage? Because libertarians would be against it because it's something imposed by the government.
Of course, I'm not for the minimum wage, but I'm not for people, But the situation is you're thinking that a living wage, such as like what you just popped up because somebody told you, some soothsayer told you that.
Well, I don't think he's a soothsayer. It's not a soothsayer. It is.
They might as well be because that average.
It is not a soothsayer. It is a 2020 update living wage calculator. It is from the Department of Urban Studies and Planning at MIT. Which is a university. And
that's not an argument, but okay.
What's your point, dude? What's your point about the minimum wage?
Well, it is an argument, excuse me. It is an argument that it's not done by a soothsayer. It's done by experts who study.
I'm saying it might as well be a soothsayer because those numbers are bullshit. I'm sorry. I live in California. I honestly know how much I make more than $15 an hour. And it's still hard to find a room like your own studio for $20 an hour.
It sounds like you think the minimum wage should be higher.
I am.
I'm not saying the minimum.
If you have data that suggests the minimum wage should be higher, I am totally on board with that.
I have experience knowing that is bullshit. I'm telling you, and I'm not advocating for minimum wage. I'm just telling you the fact.
Let's raise it. Okay, I accept it.
Understand the argument that you're trying to make here. But can I ask you a question? All right.
Go ahead.
It sounds like you work a job, right? You work for a wage.
Kinda. I flip cars.
Okay, so do you work for yourself then?
Now we know we have such a problem with lemon laws.
Lemon laws.
Yeah. No. I make sure that these cars are good. I don't. If there's something wrong with the engine or transmission, I wouldn't sell. I wouldn't sell my vehicles. I'm very transparent.
Is that a contract or is that just your work?
Contract?
Just my philosophical belief.
You don't sign a contract to that effect? Well, we don't have.
I mean, if they want to sign a contract, making sure that everything it doesn't go to plan, then I guess I'll honor it.
My point is,
maybe I'll be like,
have you ever worked for a wage? How much freedom do you have at work? Because libertarians are all about freedom, right?
The most freedom.
All right. Yeah.
Listen, here's the deal.
Think about that. That's all I'm going to say.
No,
it's been one of the best days of my life. And I appreciate your calling in, Aaron, in a way that I can't really express to you in the words I have.
I'm sorry.
No. I'm not being facetious. I really did this.
Oh, okay.
This was
it's like chicken soup for the Seder soul.
This is honestly, I needed this.
Do you think we can do this again?
I desperately hope so. And I don't think I've ever been more sincere about anything in my entire life. But Aaron, I appreciate you calling in, and we will post that link to the living wage. You can go to livingwage.mit.edu. And I suggest that you contact the people who develop that and tell them they've got to raise it.
More generous.
No, I'm not going to advocate for that.
Oh, okay. But I appreciate the phone call, and please call in again.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
We can continue this conversation because I have some things to say about the origins of private property that he might not like.
Yes.
Well, but also just distinguish between personal and private property.
Also that. There are so many things to say.
Like golf courses as an example of private property is like one of the most, like in any community, just a scar in the landscape and politics. So
I would point people to my conversation. I can't remember. Maybe it was the second one with Walter Block, and who is a professor at, I can't remember.
Was it Wayne State?
No. It's somewhere else, actually. It's somewhere you've heard of. That is, I can't remember.
George Mason?
No, you would think it was George Mason, but it was. It's like a place you don't necessarily associate with it, but it's an endowed professorship, which made more sense. And also, the guy who ran for president as a libertarian, I can't remember his name. He's a nice fellow. Shoot.
Oh yeah, I forgot
the kid who got arrested at the Lincoln Memorial. I can't.
Sandman.
No, gosh. Anyways, go back. Walter Block and I had a conversation about private property and how that's established, and this whole concept of you work, you develop property rights by working the property. And I said, well, the native people of this land were working the land. Why didn't they get to keep their property rights? Why didn't they have property rights? And ultimately what it comes down to, and this guy is, he's a professor at a business school. He was an advisor to Ron Paul and maybe to Rand Paul, I think at one point. I think he's since become a Trumpster, but Walter Block's argument was that they adopted the perspective of, because they adopted a perspective of an idea that had developed in France, I believe in the maybe 14 or 15 or 1600s. I can't remember now. That's when it kicks in. That's when property rights kicks in. Prior to that.
How convenient.
Well, that's exactly the point, is that it's a completely arbitrary notion that just happens to maintain my property rights. But that's just, that's what we decided. So that's what it is. And that's the principle. Like, we're going to start the principle after I'm in the driver's seat. And that's basically it. So
at least this guy was honest about the fact that he has no principles, right? Like, his concept of rights is actually closer to mine, which is that these idealist concept of rights as these things that float out in the ether is nonsense. We have as many rights as we can take for ourselves.
Well, that's right. And I think, but the most libertarians, and this guy, Aaron, who called in, didn't really have that as much, say that they're going on first principles, but they just decide when first principles start. And it just happens to start at a place where it benefits them the most. All right, let's go through a couple of IMs, then we got to get out of here.